Absolutely, and I don't want it to just be just be about the broadcasters. I mean, there's so many other aspects. I mean, you look at you look at the if you look at the amount of broadcasters and how we're not representing that realm, but you look on the flip side, you look at the the other aspects of media. You look at podcasting. I
Mhm.
guarantee you, like from the pivots and the I am athletes of the world, the knuckleheads, the
Yeah,
that's why, like, that's what inspired the jersey essentially. It was just like
yeah,
these guys can go, because they're the ones, like, not everybody's gonna make it to ESPN, not everybody's
right,
gonna make it to Fox. So, and then the thing is that if it's not the games, we're not even really, I'm not really consuming, ESPN and Fox. Like, the days of me just like being a kid and just having Sports Center on all day is a thing of the past. I'm on
yeah,
YouTube. I'm watching, these athlete inspired podcasts. And I think to take a step further, we need more representation when it comes to um, media platforms that are talking about the business behind sports.
yep,
Because it's so nuanced. And like a lot of what I see right now in the market is such a like a and even the guests, it's all like it's not a lot of diversity. Like if you get on these like these podcasts around sports business, there is diversity, but at the same time, it's like maybe one or two.
Hi, it's Fred Underwood with Dream Big Sports, and welcome to Powerhouse Conversations, where we have powerful discussions around how to use digital transformation in the brands of athletes. Our guests share their experience and expertise to inspire innovation with our audience. Now let's begin.
All right, welcome to another episode of Powerhouse Conversations. We are on episode 40, and today we have a special guest with us. We have Darian Kelly. He's with the Jersey Blog. The Jersey Blog is a blog that is about storytelling and going through and connecting sports, tech, and culture. So that's what we're all about here on Powerhouse Conversation. So I definitely want to give Darren his flowers and make sure that he's able to talk about all the things he has going on. We have a lot of things in common that we love to discuss. So we're gonna have a great episode today. So Darren, how you doing today?
Doing well, man. Everything is trending upward. Thank you for having me on. This is my uh first ever time being a guest on someone else's show. So for you to send this invitation is just, I mean, I'm super grateful for the opportunity.
No, I love it. I love it, man. Like I said, you extended the invitation to me first, so I definitely wanted. I knew it would be a great conversation to have and talk about some things that both of us enjoy and are looking forward to in the sports industry. So give the people your background, who you are, and kind of go from there.
Absolutely. So for me, I'm born and raised in Baltimore, Maryland, Baltimore City exactly. I know people say that, and it's like you say that out loud. They're like, are you from the county or the city? It's like, no, I was born and raised in Baltimore City. Came up playing sports. Was fortunate enough to kind of grow up in an environment where basketball was huge. Especially in Baltimore. Grew up playing basketball and from there, sports became really big for me. Coming up and growing up, had an opportunity to go to boarding school essentially for high school, and that was just a crazy transition for me because I grew up most of us really didn't get outside of our neighborhoods, and without like AAU basketball and those sorts of things, it didn't really offer us a lot of opportunities if it wasn't for those organizations and things like that. So go to high school and eventually, be amongst people that come from different backgrounds, different, parts of Maryland, parts of the city, and really, build with others. From there, attended, left Baltimore, went to, attended Susquehanna University in Pennsylvania. And, from there, majored in philosophy. I wanted to be a lawyer most of my life. Like I was just like, I wanted to be in law. I wanted to go to law school.
Hmm.
Um, well, by the time I graduated college, it just clicked for me that that wasn't going to happen. I took the
Gotcha.
LSAT about 2 to 3 times, and it just kind of just sat with me like, wow, like this isn't for me. I ultimately, became a community organizer in Baltimore, and
Okay.
was able to, complete a lot of, relevant projects, from turning vacant lots into green spaces, as well as, building, a playground, partnering with the likes of the Kaboom Foundation, to build a playground to, encourage, youth play and youth, playground, exposure within the community. And then, from there, it was just pretty much like, you know, what's next for me, because I was able to accomplish a lot as a community organizer on top of those projects as far as community events, bringing different resources to the community. And so I was just kind of like, trying to figure out what was next for me. So from there, after doing that for about a year and a half, I, caught a one-way ticket to, Irvine, California. I had one of my best friends, had lived out there from college. He was like a brother to me. And, I would always, we were super close. And, I would always say like, man, like I got to do something different. I got to like see something else. And wound up, out there and started, working in the tech space, in the talent side of things, the talent sources. So it allowed for me to understand business,
Right.
understand, the tech industry from that perspective, and then spent some time out there and moved to Dallas, Texas. I was living in Dallas for about 4 years. Um, and then it was from when I was in Dallas that I started to really take getting into the sports industry serious, because I became aware of a program through the University of North Texas that was an MBA focused program within sport and entertainment management. And from there, it gave me exposure into what the sports business was, and it was also partnered with the Dallas Cowboys. So I was able to go to the Star, take part in different pitch competitions with different executives within the Cowboys organization. So it really exposed me to a lot. And then so just recently I moved, from there I moved to Houston, not too long ago. And now I'm really tapping into, the sports tech space, as it is in Houston, because it, even, with Dallas kind of, with Houston lacks, or with Dallas is more so the sports teams, I would say. And, you have the Cowboys, you have the Mavericks, like, the Cowboys is the biggest brand in the world, sports brand in the world. But like in Houston, there, the sports brands are not necessarily on the same level as it is in Dallas. But for what it lacks in that department, it has a very strong sports tech ecosystem.
Gotcha.
And so now I'm diving into that. So that's pretty much, my story and like how I got to where I'm at now.
No, that's dope. That's dope, and I like how you kind of broke that down. What at what point did you come up with the jersey? And like how did that come about?
Yeah, so the jersey came about when, I had, had the idea of like, I really want to get into sports. Like I was like, okay, I don't know exactly what I want to do, but I really want to get into it. And so my first, kind of thoughts were I want to work for a team, or I want to work for an organization.
Hmm.
And, when I started to like apply to jobs and, not really get a lot of traction, I just kind of started to get down. But then I think it was like, my girlfriend, she was like, well, why don't you just start your own thing? You don't have to, you don't have to like wait for someone to crown you. And so
Hmm.
that's what kind of brought me to the point where, I'm going to create something for myself. And for me, the jersey is just all about storytelling. Like I think that's the thing that I love the most about sports is like, it's one thing to watch a game and to enjoy a game, but it's like, how did the team get there, or how did this particular athlete get there? And then from a broader concept of sports business, it's like, sports is more than just the athletes, right? It's the people that,
Yep.
that are, around the business side of things, and they have stories as well as to how they
Yep.
got there. And so that's what essentially pushed me to launch it as a blog, because I was like, I'm really interested in sports business and technology. I would consume a lot of the content on a day-to-day basis, whether it was front office sports business journal. But I was like, hey, like why can I not be that too? So
Right.
that is just something that really, motivated me, just consuming that content.
No, no, no. That's definitely dope. Because I mean, I know a lot of people that are doing anything in sports can relate to that. Like applying for all these jobs. I used to go to conferences, going to these networking events, and it's like either they they're not hiring, or they're hiring for these jobs that have nothing to do with what you're trying to do, and they're paying very little. So then it's like, especially with you being in the tech industry, so like you have to balance out, like, okay, well, do I stay, do I make better money in the tech industry, or do I try to go take this job that is in sports, but it's not even going to pay me good money, and it's not what I will want to do in sports. Like they'll give you a, okay, hey, you start off in a call center basically, and it's like you're not learning about the business. Like I think that's something that definitely a lot of people that probably are going to listen to this can relate to. So I think that's dope.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I look at it as like this: if you're ever in that kind of predicament where we're trying to figure out, if you're, if you're trying to switch industries in a sense, I say
Mhm.
like in the meantime, it's always best to start something on your own because you may not get the payoff in that moment. Like even with myself, like I always, I'm like, why am I, I can't wait for the jersey to be as big as, XYZ media platform. But what you have to realize is that if you're looking to get into the sports industry and you're going from one industry to the other, you got to have something of your own because even with you starting at the bottom, it's like, your contributions are big, but at the end of the day, you got to stay true to yourself and invest in yourself more than just, making the transition and starting out from the bottom just for the sake of doing that. Like you got to really be intentional with your transition. So that's
Yep,
really
and
what I
even from the standpoint of if you want somebody to hire you, quote unquote, hire you, then you have to have something to show them that you have done it on yourself, and then it also shows that you're a self starter. You're not going to wait. So when you come on their job or when you're in that interview process, you can say, hey, there's a project that's coming up, and I'm gonna be someone who is going to take charge and own that project. Like your business or your quote unquote your thing that you started on your own is could be a project for ESPN. Like those are many businesses that people have to look at it like. So everything that you do, don't be afraid to step out and take a leap of faith and do it for yourself. Because the way I look at it, like your passion, if you have a passion for it, like most of the stuff I would do for free anyway. So like, what is it costing me to create this, like you just said, podcast, create this blog, create this business? Like, what else am I gonna be doing? Like this is something that I enjoy doing. So I think a lot of people need to for one, stick to it, right? Because I think a lot, and that's one thing I'm proud of. This is, like I said, 40 episodes in of the podcast, of being able to make sure that you can show that you can do something and actually follow through and stick to it, and show that longevity, and show that show that ability to start and finish something, or not even in this case not necessarily finish but continue to do it. It shows that mental fortitude and everything of that nature.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that with you, like just giving your flowers before we move on, like the fact that you're on the 40th episode is huge because, I personally look up to that. Like with you, the way you release your content, you're consistent I mean, from the weeks to the days. I mean, just, if you building your subscriber base on YouTube and just, I love seeing that because you don't really see a lot of people who are consistently doing it. Like you said, you're doing it for free. It just shows that like, you know, it just shows that if you have a passion and you stick when you stay consistent, you're building something at the end of the day. So I wanted to just let you know, just hearing that you're on your 40th episode, it's like that's motivation for me and a lot of other people out there who are in the similar spotlight. So
No, I appreciate it. So let's dive into this, the meat and the potatoes of it. Like,
yeah,
so
let's go.
what, when you talk about sports, tech, and culture, what is exciting you the most about what's going on out there?
Yeah, I think that if I was to kind of break it down, I would say the from the sports standpoint, I think that on a level, I think on the collegiate level of things, you have obviously the NIL piece, which is very fascinating to me because it's something that as we come up as sports fans, and if you watch college sports, we remember those those stories on ESPN of like the NCAA violations and the people that are often like demonized, and now we see a complete culture shift with the NIL, and I think from the tech side of things, it's like you know we often look at tech as something that's like we look at like these big companies like an Apple or Microsoft, or we look at like the barrier of entry being so high, but it's actually different. I think it's all about contributing. And so what excites me from the tech standpoint is that there are, more, athletes and entrepreneurs that are getting involved in tech that are just, not being, not letting the barrier of entry discourage them.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? You look at, I can think of many examples that are people that are, for example, one of the guys that I had on my podcast, Josh Ibrahim, who has ProfitX, which is a software that is used, a data analytics software using that is used by teams to evaluate, player production and contracts. And he's partnered with, a guy like Spencer Dinwiddie, who is involved in tech. I mean, you look at, what Kevin Durant is doing,
Yep.
on the tech side. So a lot of
Yep.
athletes are getting involved and really showing other athletes like, hey, like you don't have to go and have your computer science degree, or you don't have to go the traditional route. You can leverage your impact in the culture specifically to open doors for other people. So I think that those different things. And then the culture side, I mean, we run the show. Our community runs the show.
Right.
We make things cool in a sense. And so
Yep.
there are, many aspects. And I was having a conversation with a mentor of mine, and she was saying that, we look at it as sports and culture, but it's really the culture that influences sports.
Right. Right.
Everything from, like, for example, the gritty, like in NFL, Justin Jefferson is doing it now, is actually in the Madden game.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
something as small as a dance is really, that is popular in our culture, is now influencing how, people who play video games, how they see us
Right.
and how they take part in it. So I just think that those nuances are happening, and it's a great thing to see them all come together.
No, I think that is spot on, right? Because even from the standpoint of, like you just said, these guys that are investing in tech, like they don't have to know, they don't have to be the expert, right? But they can, when in the past they were doing something else with their money, they are taking their money and they're investing in tech. And that is, in a sense, giving an opportunity to somebody who didn't necessarily get those opportunities, and they can impact, the black and brown people, by, investing, because when you talk about it from a VC standpoint, those dollars weren't going to our community. So now, if they have these opportunities to be able to invest in it, that's going to be something that's going to help out us and help out the culture. So all these things intersect, and this is how it's always been, right? It's just now that we are becoming more knowledgeable about these things, we're able to impact our communities. So I think that's dope.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, technology is, I think that it is creating, it's a platform, it's a space in which is creating, is actually the bridge between the both, between
Hmm.
sports and culture. I look at it
Yep.
like that, like technology is that bridge, and it's something that we can all be a part of, because
Yep.
we all have smartphones. We all, we all have, some sort of affiliation with an app, and how it works. And so, just having that curiosity alone allows for you to say, okay, how does this work? Or how do I get involved in this? I mean, you look at gaming and esports, like that is, an example of how tech is bridging, bridging both those two aspects of sports and culture. So it's growing for sure.
No, I definitely agree, because even when you talk about, like you just said, esports, right? Think back to when we were growing up, that it was something that, like, oh, you're lazy, oh, you're this, hey, get off that game, you're spending too much time on it. And to think that in today's in 2022, that these kids, I mean, grown-ups as well, like, but they're literally able to be millionaires in some instances, and or just, hey, have a career in it, right? And then that opens up for other careers, right? Like you said, we always got to think about, hey, it's the person that's playing it, but there's always other people around it that are able to eat, or create opportunities for their family through these avenues, right? So I think that's definitely something that you have to look towards, and it's definitely something that you have to pay attention to. And one of the things that I like with Dream Big Sports is that, I want to make sure that I'm helping these athletes be able to leverage the technology, right? Because you talked about, like, I think people overcomplicate when they think of tech. They always think about, the big tech, or the sports wearables and the things of that nature. But really, like you just said, you think about social media, you think about, when it comes from just applications that you're using to create create content and to get your message out to the people. How are we creating the content and helping these athletes become a part of the creator economy, right? So they're able to utilize their brand and their name, their image, their likeness. We talked about with the college athletes, but that's for all athletes. It's not just they just brought it to college because they were getting over on them in the past. But how can you utilize technology to leverage your name, your image, and your likeness and create something that is able to make money for you, where you're not depending on someone else to make that money for you? So I think that's something big.
Absolutely. And I think it's a matter of looking at it, because even just how, how I grew up, I just feel as though like we often had like a one track mind as far as viewing things. We it was like, we come up and it's like, oh, I want to go to the league. I want to play, I want to be a professional athlete. And then when that doesn't work out, it's like, oh, I want to, be, become sort of some sort of a professional, but not necessarily looking at the entire landscape of it. You know what I mean? I think oftentimes when you come from an environment where you're always in survival mode, it
Yeah.
allows you to just see things one sort of a way and not look at like, how does, how is this entity generating revenue? Or like you
Yep.
said, from a creator standpoint, how can I leverage my brand, or how can I, partner with this, brand to like, bring awareness to it, and I think that that's something that um, we overlook sometimes. And when we do the, like with Dream Big Sports or just any platform or agency in which is, leveraging brand recognition, it's like you're creating a community through your brand. There's some people that might not have heard about Dream Big Sports, or might not have
Yep.
heard about the jersey. So it's a way in which, the brands are coming together, but also the communities are joining as well. So that's an exciting thing to see when we talk about
Yeah.
brand partners.
Because even when you think about it from the standpoint of, these athletes have always had fans, right? But they didn't know what it meant to build a community. Like it's just a different, like you've always had these fans, but how can you take those fans and build a community and become a close, like how can you leverage that to where you're not dependent on the Nikes, where you're not dependent on, whatever other because they're taking your community and they're selling to them, right? So they're buying from Nike instead of them being able to buy directly from you. So that's where some of these, this new technology like Web3, NFTs, the coins, tokens, like all these things are is technology that allows you, like you just said, to take that bridge and connect culture and connect the athlete, and tech is that bridge that brings them together. Yep. So I know one of the things that you are really big on is the black representation in media, right? So how do you what's your thoughts on that, and how can it improve?
Yeah, so the representation is big, because you look at, for me, like when I was trying to figure out like what my contribution to sports was going to become, like I looked up to, the announcers, or the Stephen A. Smiths of the world, or even just from a journalistic approach, because I've always had a passion for writing. When I was had my law school pursuits, I was always constantly writing. Like writing was a passion of mine, but it was just more so that I didn't really see a lot of people that looked like me that were interviewing the athletes, or directing, the documentaries, telling the stories of these individuals. So it just, for me, it was just like, man, I just got to figure out a way to get involved, because even with the whole shakeup with, we look at the announcers that, you had, Troy Aikman and Joe Buck going to ESPN, and you had like, different people, going to Amazon, right? And
Hmm.
these are all mostly white men.
Right, right,
There
right.
aren't, there aren't any, black men that you see, not necessarily, from the perspective of being in the booth and being a broadcaster, but just even in
Right.
the wider spectrum. It's like, now that people have that voice. And so for me, it was just more so like, I gotta really, for my contribution, I gotta really understand what my voice is, but also understand I'm representing, a people or a community of individuals that want to get involved,
Yep.
want to, contribute in a way of like telling the stories of these individuals, not just the athletes, but just the people that impact the business side of things. And so I think that things are getting a lot better though. I think that we're moving in a better direction. You look at Byron Allen, who was a guy that I look up to tremendously. He just did the deal with HBCU Go, as far as ensuring that more games, more football games and other games that are shown on a more on a platform in which everyone can see those games. So I think that there are a lot of people that are in media, black people that are in media, they're using their platform to expand viewership. But I think when you talk about outside of just the games and the content creation and the behind the scenes, I think that we need more black representation because it's different when we can all relate to the cultural aspects of our experiences. I think that it's one way, it's one way in which we don't have to like censor a lot. We can just be
Yeah.
honest and free and just really, be as raw as possible. And I think that when you don't identify, it kind of causes you to maybe want to hold back things or not be as authentic and truthful. So I think that, that's where I can see it improving. That's what I want to do, moving forward.
No, and I really think that's a good point because when you really think about it, when you have like when you see these announcers and when you don't see many people that look like us, like we're definitely capable, we're definitely going to be entertaining. So why don't we have black people that are calling these games, right? Because the majority of the players are black, right? So why and majority of the stars are black. Why can't we have somebody on national television that speaks like us, that looks like us, and able to entertain us in a way that's going to keep our eyes on the screens and keep us tuned in, just like the players on the field are keeping us tuned in. I think that there has to be some type of representation that is talking and speaking our language.
Absolutely, and I don't want it to just be about the broadcasters. I mean, there's so many other aspects. I mean, you look at the if you look at the amount of broadcasters and how we're not represented in that realm, but you look on the flip side, you look at the other aspects of media. You look at podcasting. I guarantee you, like from the pivots and the I am athletes of the world, the knuckleheads,
Yeah.
that's why. Like that's what inspired the jersey. Essentially, it was just like if these guys can go, because they're the ones. Like not everybody's gonna make it to ESPN. Not everybody's gonna make it to Fox. So, and then the thing is that if it's not the games, we're not even really. I'm not really consuming, ESPN and Fox. Like the days of me just like being a kid and just having Sports Center on all day is a thing of the past. I'm on YouTube.
Yes.
I'm watching, these athlete inspired podcasts. And then I think it's take a step further. We need more representation when it comes to media platforms that are talking about the business behind sports.
Yep.
Because it's so nuanced. And like a lot of what I see right now in the market is such a like a even the guests, it's all like it's not a lot of diversity. Like if you get on these like these podcasts around sports business, there is diversity, but at the same time, it's like maybe one or two or three people.
Yeah.
So we need more people, like yourself, like me, that are really, giving others the platform within the
Yep.
sports business realm to tell their stories. Because, like I said, they're not going to initially have the big platforms, initially. You know what I mean? So it takes some time, but we also got to do each other service to help get those voices and those stories out there.
Yep. And no, I think that's a great, amazing point, right? Because just a couple of years ago, before the pandemic, right? I used to get up and I'm turning on First Take, turning on, Sports Center. I'm turning on, Undisputed. I only listen to clips now. I go to YouTube and I put it on and I see if there's a topic that interests me. And then I watch that segment about that topic. But other than that, I'm consuming the content that I want to see and I want to hear. So I think that is a good point because now you're seeing that it's two sides to that, right? The way that we're consuming the content and who we're consuming the content from. I don't necessarily want to see the analysts that didn't necessarily play the sport at that level because of the way they talk about the athletes that they're talking about. The pro athletes of today are typically going to speak on the other athletes with a level of respect that they deserve. And that's what, and I think that Draymond was brilliant when he came up with the new media thing. Like, right. So he was able to change the narrative and have that conversation of, hey, you can talk about these athletes in a way that you can break down the game, you can analyze the game, but you can also speak to it critically with being respectful. And I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, and to the credit, to the point of Draymond and creating a new media, I love that. Because it's like we, for the majority of our lives coming up playing sports, we were critiqued by, like, constantly, like, critiqued by people, that by analysts that A, didn't look like us, but B, like, didn't understand fully where those athletes were coming from. We're kind of painting them in the light in which it wasn't necessarily positive. So to
Mm-hmm.
see people like Draymond Green offering those perspectives in a way it's respectful, and like, we respect it. I mean, we respect Draymond. We respect his opinion. As
Yep.
fans, we
Yep.
want I'm tuning in. I'm tuning into the Draymond Green show. So I think that it's changing it, and I think that that's what's going to ultimately, like, speed up the diversity in media, because a large part of your viewership, it's like, you're going to lose viewers if you don't have any type of, like, representation. It's like, why do in the early days, it's like, why would we, if it was a Stephen A segment or a clip, like, why would we click on that? Because we know that Stephen A is going to probably say something that's relevant to our community. Same with Uncle Unc, Shannon Sharp. Why are we clicking on what he's saying? Because we know that he's going to offer a perspective that we can relate to. So that's super important in media, and I think that we need to see more of it. And I think it's changing, but we need to continue to stay consistent with those
Yep.
nuances.
And I think it's pushing the culture forward, and I think that it is forcing the media to stop sensationalizing these hot topics and these clickbait stories, right? Like, let's get some substance behind what we're going to talk about in the media. So I think that's big, and I think the more that we see these athletes create their own platforms to drive more content to the athletes that are that need to be respected, I think that's when you're going to see the pressure for the ESPNs of the world to pull up and get some more people. That's why, like, when Pat Bev came on, and Pat Bev was like, respect it or not like it, I didn't like everything that he said, but respect it or not, it was, somebody like that, right? You have friends that played the sport, and they're going to talk in that manner. So I think it's definitely something that you're going to see, where you need that representation. But you also saw that Pat Bev can speak critically about the game, but he knows the game, and he can analyze the game. So you have to respect it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean,
Yeah.
the same as it is in the sports business side of things. I think that we're understanding that, just as a community as a whole, we're understanding that sports is a business now, and we want to be a part of that. I think that's why you see more, black content creators, and more people that are, from the culture, creating different platforms, whether it's a podcast, whether it's a blog, whether it's all sorts of content creation, because it's like, we want to be a part of that too. We have stories as well. We want to offer our perspective in that. And so I think that we're seeing it just from a media side, sports media side, but on the sports business side. I think that we're living in that kind of renaissance time now. I mean, I haven't, just to see so many different platforms of people from the community, black men, black women, being able to create platforms for others. It's very, like, we need more of it, but it's exciting to be a part of that with our contributions as well.
Nah, yeah, I definitely think that's huge. One thing that I did want to discuss, and I wanted to go back to it, but the conference realignment and the impact that that's going to have on media, and then that's going to also impact NIL. So, what's your thoughts on that?
Wow. So the conference realignment is something that I don't think a lot of people are, I think people aren't really giving enough attention to it,
Hmm.
in the sense that, and for those who don't know, I'm speaking of how, you have, started with Texas, University of Texas and Oklahoma, essentially, announcing that they're going to the SEC. I believe, I think it's 2023. I could be off, but fairly soon they're going into the SEC, and then you have also two followed up with UCLA and USC going into the Big Ten, and the Big Ten just recently did a huge deal pretty much off of that, right? It's somewhere in the a $7 billion media deal across different networks from I think it's Fox, NBC. I'm not sure if ESPN's involved. I think they are. I could be wrong, but it's across multiple networks. And so when you look at that, when you dissect it from when we look at the SEC side of things, their contract has been it's almost up with CBS, and they're going to be entirely ESPN. What networks are what other networks are within that tree that SEC owns? You have the SEC network. You have with Texas going over there. You have the Longhorn network. So you have these different networks that are that are also aligning themselves with ESPN. But you look at those brands as well. You look at Texas and Oklahoma. Storied brands.
Yep.
For example, we looked at the Texas Alabama game that was just this past weekend.
Yep.
That was the most watched game in Fox history.
Yeah,
and
I thought it.
in which that's gonna. But the thing is like, the funny thing is, Fox is really like, on top of that, they also have taken out, I want to say, about 18 different ads for this upcoming Super Bowl. So they're really pushing themselves to be competitive, and for the listeners and viewers, as this season goes on, particularly in college football, I wonder if there's gonna be a game this season that's gonna get anywhere close to that game from a viewership standpoint, because you also got to think about viewership.
Yeah.
What makes the Big Ten deal so special is that you have two West Coast teams in USC and UCLA joining the Big Ten network, which from a story standpoint, from the market standpoint, you have markets like Chicago, you have the entire Midwest,
Yeah.
and you have LA, which is the number one, media market. So you bring that into the fold, and it's like people are wondering like, oh, how's this going to impact the athletes? They got to fly across the country or whatever. Ultimately the athletes don't really have much say. So it's all about the schools that are benefiting from these different deals, not necessarily the athletes. From an NIL perspective, it's only going to benefit them unless the athletes get a piece of all of that, right? Because if the Big Ten network is able to get a $7.8 billion deal, that's just their cut. What is the cut for the athletes that are playing on the field each and every day? So
Yep.
it's interesting because it's like as conference realignment is taking place, people have to think about not just these games as games, but these games are products at the end of the day. Like,
Right.
about, these games are products, and that's why you see a lot of people like Hulu and Amazon. They're trying to get, because a sports game is the hottest piece of content you can have on your network.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So
Yep.
it's a lot of moving parts, but when you talk about how it's impacted NIL, it's only going to be impactful if the athletes get a piece of that. Because if you don't, it's an injustice.
Yeah. I posted a clip I think yesterday. Jalen Rose was on EYL and he was talking about it. And he was talking about how this was on the Nike side. He was talking about how they take their cut from Nike, but they don't divvy that up with the athletes. So the athletes can't get a Nike deal, right? They can't get a deal with Fox. They can't get a deal with ABC, but they're still taking that big chunk of money from these networks. And they're not gonna, unless they, like you just said, unless they divvy that up between the athletes, then like it's still a problem of like you're not really giving them their worth, but you're going to treat them like they're pro athletes and fly them all across the country, right? So like if it's not making geographical sense, like now you're like, okay, are they flying? Like are they flying private, or like what are they doing to do all of this? And so now you are getting them into these scenarios where they are essentially pro athletes. They're no longer focusing on school, because if I'm an athlete and I'm in the Big Ten and let's just say Ohio State, right? Columbus, Ohio, and I have to fly to, the West Coast. I fly to Cali. Like, how much schoolwork am I really doing, or how many classes I'm really going to? Like, I just had a game last week, and I got to fly to Cali. So, like, what am I like? How am I really being able to still be a student athlete? These are all the things that have to be talked about, and all the things that aren't probably being addressed and being swept under the rug because, okay, yeah, we had to allow them to make their name and make their money off their name, image, and likeness. But hey, we still can get the big cut of where the real money is, where the bees are, right? Where the billions are. We can still get these billions, and we'll let them get a million maybe, if they can go find it on their own. But the big money, we're still gonna make it for ourselves.
Look at, and I think that what you're saying is key because you're just going back to that Texas Alabama game. Look at who the quarterbacks were. Right.
Yep.
You had Quinn Ewers who left, foregone his senior year of high school to go to Ohio State to collect NIL money because he couldn't do it in Texas as a high school athlete.
Mm-hmm.
You had Bryce Young. You had Bryce Young, and you look at the different amount of deals, NIL deals he has on his plate.
Yep.
So that alone, you look at that and the fact that these two teams are going to be within the SEC and a part of eventually, under that ESPN or Disney umbrella, it's going to attract a lot of viewership, and that's where it comes down to because it's like you can amass a lot of money within NIL, but if the product isn't, then there's going to be a correlation there that's going to kind of be off in a sense. And so it's just something to think about. We look at that game. I think people might have overlooked that, but that's just that those Alabama Texas games are going to be games that are going to be watched more. Because you think about Arch Manning's coming to Texas, and if he's able to live up to that hype, I mean people are definitely going to be tuned in. And he just also happens to be one of the top NIL. He's at the top of the list when it comes to NIL. I think at like maybe 4.5 million or 3.5 million within that context. So it's a lot bigger than what we think.
No, because like you said, it's two of the biggest brands in college football or college sports in general, right? Because when you talk about these colleges, you have to talk about them as brands. They have to be considered like these are no longer schools, these are brands, and you're talking about some of the biggest brands in college sports, and they are coming into the same conference. So these types of games, if you have the talent on the field, that's going to be a yearly game that you may be able to see. So I think it's going to be huge. Well, I know we're coming towards the end, and I wanna make sure we wrap up, but I do have some questions I want to get on with you, and one of them is, who is your favorite athlete growing up?
It will have to be AI.
Okay.
That was the guy that he from the jersey, the jerseys to the shorts to the shoes to the answer wristband,
he influenced the culture.
Yeah, 100%. So I would have to say AI. He was
that's my guy. I got him right there up on my wall. So that's my guy. That's my guy. I love it. So I also want to know, who is your biggest or your favorite business influence? Like who did you look up to from a business standpoint?
I wouldn't say it was just necessarily one person. I would say LeBron, just with what he's been able to do, that whole shut up and dribble campaign, how he's been able to flip that into different businesses, different revenue streams, and also bring his friends with him, which is something that we see a lot of. And then on the media side, I gotta say Byron Allen. I mean, he's someone that you don't really see a lot of black men owning their own media companies, and just the things he had to go through to get to this point. With Comcast and things like that, to now get to where he's owning the likes of the Weather Channel. So I would say those two guys are my favorite business guys from the sports standpoint.
I love it. So what's your biggest thing that you want our audience to take away from you coming on today?
Yeah, the biggest thing I want them to take away is just like when it comes to sports business and technology, just get involved, and just stay consistent. I think that's the biggest thing. It's like consistency is king, and I think that if you're having trouble with that, lean on your peers. When there are times where I'm having trouble with my consistency, I look up to you. You're someone that I look up to, and like a friend can do it, I can do it. So just get involved and not get so don't get so caught up in, overthinking about, oh, what if it doesn't work? Or, you know, what if this isn't, the right thing to do? It's like, just do it, just
Yeah.
do it, just get involved. Don't sweat the small things. So just have that courage and just stay consistent with whatever you're doing.
No, I love it. I love it. I love it. So as we close out, I want to make sure that you all go follow the Jersey blog. Make sure that you all, tap in. Great content. He's definitely going to make sure that you're getting the information that you need from a media perspective, and making sure that you're going to be fulfilled and have some good things to take away. It's again episode 40. We have another one next week. This will be another good one. We're going to be heading more into the Web3 and a lot of other great content that you're going to want to hear. So stay tuned as we close out. See y'all next week.